week from tomorrow, we're all going to be doing this again for the New Hampshire primary. So almost every single candidate is going to be going directly from here to New Hampshire to campaign, except for the man in fourth place, who a few months ago was in first place here, Dr. Ben Carson. What have we learned?
That's right. We should say that our Chris Moody is breaking this news that Ben Carson is going to go back to Florida, to his home, regardless of how he does tonight here in Iowa. He's going to go there for several days, and then afterwards, he's not going to go to South Carolina. He's not going to go to New Hampshire. He's going to come to Washington, D.C., and he's going to do that because the National Prayer Breakfast is on Thursday, and people who have been following Ben Carson's career know that that's really where he got himself on the political map, attending that prayer breakfast and really giving it to President Obama at the time, and he became kind of a hero among conservatives, among evangelicals especially.
But it's very unusual.
Very unusual.
To be announcing that you're going home to rest for a few days, not going on to the next site. Plus, he's already announced that he's going to be coming out and speaking at 9:15 local, 10:15 Eastern, no matter whether or not we know the results, because he wants to get home and get ahead of the storm.
Look, if you want to be president of the United States, you don't go home to Florida. I mean, that's just bottom line. That's the end of the story. If you want to signal to your supporters that you want it, that you're hungry for it, that you want them to get out and campaign, you got to be out there doing it too. And he's not doing it. It's very unusual.
All right, that was the report that aired on CNN, and that is now, I guess, at the bottom of this brouhaha. And we had Dr. Carson talking about it yesterday. He was annoyed by it, but he did accept Ted Cruz's apology. Donald Trump has weighed in. He's accusing Cruz of stealing an election, wants a redo, and says he may sue over this. Anyway, Ted Cruz is with us. Senator, how are you?
Sean, it's great to be with you.
So you didn't make this up whole cloth. This was a report in the news media that was picked up by everybody at the time, correct?
Look, this is all silliness. That was a CNN news report. It was an accurate news report, and our team passed on an accurate news report. Now, afterwards, the Carson campaign put out a statement where they said they weren't suspending our campaign, and I apologize that our team did not forward the subsequent statement, but passing on a news report I recognize that Donald Trump might find it startling, the notion that someone would pass on truthful news reports. It's a little bit different from how his campaign has been conducted, but that's all right.
I mean, they couldn't be more clear in that report. In other words, nothing was made up of whole cloth. Yes, of course, news reports are sent among campaigns. That's just part of the course of doing business every day, right?
Well, and not only that, the news report is true. That is, in fact, what Ben Carson did. Ben is a wonderful man. He's a man of principle. He's a man of character. But it was, in fact, true that he wasn't going to New Hampshire. He wasn't going to South Carolina. He was going to Florida. And that was news that voters thought was relevant. And I have to say it is interesting seeing Donald Trump, just apparently melting down. He seems to be taking losing really badly.
It seems to me that if anyone ought to be really mad, it ought to be Ben Carson. Did you talk to him?
I have visited with Ben, and I apologize to him directly as well. Although it's important to be clear, what our political team did is forwarded a news report that was true and accurate. And so, that's, the voters are entitled to know current and breaking news. That is, in fact, the political process. And, all of the rest of us, here is the simple fact that matters. 2 nights ago, the people of Iowa rose up in incredible numbers.
By the way, our
campaign.
This was record-breaking numbers. These were massive numbers.
It was record-shattering. It was 50% more turnout than had ever happened before. And what we saw, Sean, is we saw that old Reagan coalition coming together. We saw conservatives and evangelicals and libertarians and Reagan Democrats all unifying behind our campaign. And I understand that Donald is angry, that his entire campaign is based on his saying he never loses. Well, you know what? Donald told the people of Iowa he thought they were stupid. He skipped their debate. And the people of Iowa said, we want a real conservative. And it makes me wonder if Donald's next step, if he intends to tell the people of New Hampshire he thinks New Hampshire is stupid, if he intends to skip their debate. We've got a debate Saturday. It'll be interesting to see if Donald is still afraid of having his record questioned, or if he intends to tell the people of South Carolina that he thinks they're stupid and skip the debate there. Sean, my view is this is a job interview. And anyone who wants to serve as president owes it to the people to come in front of them, to look them in the eyes, to answer their questions. I am in New Hampshire right now on a bus tour. We are going from event to event to event, answering the questions of the people of New Hampshire. Last night I was in South Carolina. We're doing events every day. And the strength of our campaign, Sean, is the grassroots. It is an army of courageous conservatives. It is over 200,000 volunteers nationwide. And that is why we won Iowa. And that is the strength of the campaign and why I believe we're going to win the nomination and beat Hillary Clinton in November 2016 and turn this country around.
You know, I've said this the night of the Iowa caucuses. I said it yesterday on radio, but your campaign, I mean, you put a stake in Iowa and you said, I'm going to win Iowa. You did the full Grassley 99 counties. You shook every hand. You went to every event you could get to. You had a great organization on the ground. I think other campaigns have underestimated organization in terms of its importance. I think that's just part of being a smart campaigner. And you won. Let me ask you, the challenges that past winners of the Iowa caucuses have had, Huckabee, Santorum, going into New Hampshire, South Carolina, tell us why this is different from your perspective.
Oh, sure, they're entirely different. The last two winners of Iowa, both good, honorable men, they came out of the state broke. They had no resources. They had no national infrastructure. They didn't have the team in place to capitalize on the win and compete effectively for the nomination. In contrast, we have the strongest team and the most money of any candidate in the race. The fundraising numbers that were just filed a couple of days ago demonstrate that on December 31st, the end of last year, we had almost as much money in the bank as Jeb Bush plus Marco Rubio plus John Kasich plus Chris Christie combined. That is extraordinary, Sean. It is unprecedented. The conservative is supposed to be broke, not having the resources to be able to compete effectively everywhere. Now, you put that on to our grassroots army of over 200,000 volunteers, and it is why we are in the position we're in. And by the way, the last winner of the Iowa caucuses to come out with in the bank was George W. Bush. And when George W. Bush won the Iowa caucuses, he had the resources to compete nationally, and he went on to win South Carolina and win the nomination. And I think that's the analogy that is far more applicable.
You know, we only have one poll since the caucuses, and you're in a solid second place. How do you define victory in New Hampshire? Now, Trump does have a significant lead starting out the week. I don't know what the polls the rest of this week are going to show. But being in second place is certain. Look, I'm sure you're happy that you're ahead of every other candidate. We have candidates dropping out like flies now. It looks like, you know, Huckabee's gone and Rand Paul's gone and Santorum apparently is leaving and everybody else. So it's going to be...
Now be careful, Sean. I think you're passing on a CNN report there. You could get in trouble doing that.
You know, listen, I've gotten in trouble for the same thing. I kind of understand. I don't, I wanted to play that report because to me, you know, that report said everything was out there, and I'm kind of surprised the anger is so... It's almost gotten vitriolic towards you, and I'm like, well, why aren't you blaming the news media?
But Sean, it's not vitriolic. It is the media.
It's
who
politics.
Want to stir up a fight. The media want a fight between me and Ben Carson. I'm not going to give them what they want. Ben is a wonderful man. Ben and Candy are people of principle, and I am going to only sing their praises, which has been how I've conducted myself the entire course of the campaign. But it's the media who's trying to do this, and then the other person who's trying to do it is Donald Trump. And it's because Donald is throwing a temper tantrum. He promised everyone he would win Iowa. He was certain he was going to win Iowa. I remember watching your show Sunday night. You had 6 experts on the show, and Sean, 6 for 6, every one of your experts said, Donald Trump is going to win Iowa. Donald Trump is going to win Iowa. Donald Trump is going to win Iowa.
By the way, that was not... I didn't make that prediction.
It was not... Well, Sean, you had wisdom beyond your peers.
You know why I didn't make the prediction? I'll tell you why. Because I actually went back and looked at all the polls versus the actual results, and I went back to 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, and like all of those years, the polling was off anywhere between 8 and 27 points. So the polls have been, historically horrible out of Iowa.
Well, but Sean, there is a reason why Donald is melting down and is accusing the people of Iowa, the men and women of Iowa, of being fraudsters. It's because he can't and doesn't want to actually discuss the issues in substance. He can't, for example, defend the fact that he embraces socialized medicine, that his health care plan is identical to Bernie Sanders. Expand Obamacare and put the federal government in charge of everybody's health care. He can't defend that. He can't defend his eminent domain policy, that he supports the Kelo decision. He supports using government power to take private property, to take your home, to take little old ladies' homes and give them to giant corporations and casinos. And so for Trump, he has to blame someone, something, anyone other than himself and his own record for his loss. So he's going to strike out, and it's all designed to be a distraction. I'm not going to engage in the mudslinging. I'm going to focus on substance and issue. And by the way, the invitation I gave to Donald Trump before still stands, which is if he wants to do a one-on-one debate, Donald is welcome. I'm happy to debate him anytime, anywhere. I know he's scared of moderators. I suggested, Sean, you could moderate. Mark Levin could moderate. Rush Limbaugh could moderate. And
I'd be the perfect moderator. You want to know why? Because I would bring up the economy. I'd bring up issues like national security, homeland security, and just let you guys debate and discuss it.
Well, and in fact, let me underscore, in response to my debate invitation. So when Donald skipped the Iowa debate and I invited him to a one-on-one debate, he responded, well, when Ted establishes himself as the clear number 2, then I'll debate him. Well, Donald, I'm afraid we did a little bit better. The people of Iowa established Donald as the clear number 2, and since I won Iowa, I'm happy to give him the same offer, which is I'll debate the clear number 2, anytime, any place. But, Sean, Donald is almost surely not going to accept this invitation because he's afraid to defend his record. He just wants to insult. And the people of Iowa didn't have time for that. I don't believe the people of New Hampshire, South Carolina, or the people of America are interested in insults. Discuss the issues of substance, your vision for America, your record, and how we turn this country around. That's what I'm doing every day.
Let me ask about, do you think this is a 3-man race? Marco Rubio outperformed the poll numbers as well. Do you think it's now a 3-man race? Do you think it's a 2-man race? How do you see this campaign at this point?
Oh, listen, that's going to be a question for the voters. I think in the eyes of the news media, it's a one-man race. I have to admit, it was almost a Saturday Night Live skit where the reporters were cooing coming out of Iowa. Hey, did you see Marco's terrific third-place finish? And I just had to laugh and say, that's sort of an interesting phrase.
By the way, you and Donald Trump are in agreement because I interviewed him and he said the same thing.
Well, the reason is simple. The Washington cartel, they're divided between Marco and Donald. They want one or the other. They view them as deal makers. They'll both continue the status quo. They both will continue the cronyism. They'll both will continue the corporate welfare. So, for example, both Donald and Marco Rubio promised the governor of Iowa, hey, we'll keep the ethanol mandate. We'll keep the cronyism. I said, no, we'll stand with the American taxpayers and end the favoritism and have no subsidies for anyone. And so the media is doing everything they can to spin Marco's third-place finish into something more than it is. We've been joking, bronze is the new gold. But the media and Washington tell you everything you need to know. If you want a president who will stand up to the corruption in Washington, the bipartisan corruption, then just ask yourself, who is Washington attacking? And that tells you everything you need to know as a voter.
So where are you going to spend the entire week now in New Hampshire, or are you going to go to South Carolina at all this week too?
Well, yesterday we flew directly to New Hampshire.
Yeah, we only got about 20 seconds, yep.
We did an event in New Hampshire, then we flew to South Carolina. We did a huge event in South Carolina. We're back in New Hampshire. We're going to be both places, and if you want to learn more, go to our website, tedcruz.org, tedcruz.org. Come join us, come volunteer and contribute. tedcruz.org. We'd love to see you on the road in New Hampshire or South Carolina.
Senator, you deserve so much credit for your hard work in Iowa. We wish you continued success. Thank you for being on the program, and we'll see you out on the campaign trail. Thank you, sir.
Take care. God bless.